Welcome to this deep dive. We're going on a journey today and
A journey.
into the world of Tibetan refugees.
Absolutely.
And we've got all these materials from the TATANKA website,
Would you?
articles, stories, a whole study guide. I mean, there's a
Sure.
lot here.
There's so much to unpack, and what's so interesting to me is the way that they combine like really factual accounts
Hmm.
with these deeply personal stories. So we get kind of both sides of this whole situation.
Yeah. And to kind of give you a taste of what we're going to get into today,
Okay.
did you know that there's a connection between Tibetan refugees and AI?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty mind-blowing, right?
That's wild.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. So to understand this story, you really have to start with the Tibetan Exodus.
Okay.
So imagine it's 1959, a huge uprising erupts in Tibet, and it forces hundreds of thousands of people to flee their homeland.
Wow.
It created this global diaspora.
That's a staggering number of people to just
Yeah.
have to leave everything behind their homes, their community.
Everything.
Yeah.
Their whole way of life.
And where did they go?
So a lot of them went to neighboring countries,
Okay.
India, Nepal, Bhutan.
Uh-huh.
But then you also had communities popping up in like the US, Canada,
Wow.
even Switzerland,
Really?
all over the place.
Wow. So they really adapted to like all these different environments and cultures.
Exactly.
Well, in the source material, it really emphasizes that it wasn't just about like rebuilding their lives.
Right.
They've been so dedicated to keeping their culture alive.
Absolutely.
And there was this one quote that really stuck with me. It was from Namgyal. He's a Tibetan elder, and he said, "In exile, we became the guardians of a culture the world almost lost."
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And that really like gets to the heart of their mission, right?
Yeah.
It's this sense of responsibility, almost like a sacred duty to safeguard this culture that was on the verge of disappearing.
Yeah, and they didn't just like talk about it, they did something about it. They created these institutions like the Tibetan Children's Village and the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives in Dharamshala in India.
Uh-huh.
And like what goes on in those places? Are they like museums or?
No, they're not museums. They're these vibrant living centers of Tibetan culture.
Oh, wow.
You've got like classrooms bustling with kids learning the language,
Uh-huh.
workshops where they're teaching traditional art forms like Sanka painting.
So they're keeping it alive.
They're keeping it alive, passing it down through generations,
That's amazing.
and then libraries overflowing with ancient texts and historical records.
So it's like a little,
It's like a mini Tibet,
yeah.
right, within India.
That's amazing. But their story doesn't just stop there, does it?
No, not at all.
The source material talks about their role in like human rights advocacy.
Yeah, they've become these powerful voices on a global stage, raising awareness about their own situation,
Uh-huh.
but also advocating for the rights of others who are facing similar challenges. And there are some organizations like the International Campaign for Tibet,
Okay.
Students for Free Tibet.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're at the forefront of this whole movement.
So it's not just about preserving their own culture, it's about making a more just world for everyone. Like it makes you think about how their experiences have shaped how they see the world.
Absolutely. And what I think is fascinating is how they're going about this.
Okay.
It's not just protests and rallies, although that is a part of it,
Uh-huh.
but they're using these really sophisticated strategies like they're lobbying governments.
Okay.
They're working with international bodies like the United Nations.
Wow.
They're using social media to reach a global audience.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
really smart. They've managed to get Tibet's situation onto the international agenda,
Wow.
really raising awareness, garnering support for their cause.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But you know, I imagine that life as a refugee has got to be so challenging. The source material mentions like legal uncertainties, limited economic opportunities,
Right.
even the difficulty of adapting to a new culture.
All of that. And it's easy to think about the big picture and forget about the individual struggles.
Mm-hmm.
That's why having the story of Pemkar is so impactful.
Pemkar.
Yeah.
Right.
She's a Tibetan refugee woman living in India.
Okay.
And her story really gives us a personal lens to understand all these broader themes that we're talking about.
Yeah, let's talk about Pemkar, because I was really captivated by her story.
Yeah.
She weaves these incredible tapestries, right?
She does. And what's so remarkable about them is that they're not just like beautiful pieces of art.
Uh-huh.
They're these intricate visual narratives of her homeland.
Oh, wow.
So you see these vibrant threads depicting snow-capped mountains, glistening rivers, prayer flags fluttering in the wind.
Wow.
It's like she's keeping the memory of Tibet alive through her art.
It's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
And her son, 𝗧𝗔𝗓𝗓, he speaks 3 languages.
Really?
Hindi, English, and Tibetan.
That's amazing.
It shows you how the younger generation is embodying this blend of cultures, right?
Yeah.
Navigating multiple worlds,
Yeah.
but carrying their heritage with them.
And 𝗵𝗪's story, it goes beyond just cultural preservation, though, right?
Right.
It's about personal growth and resilience.
It really is. And I remember reading about her transformation.
Okay.
You know, she was initially so hesitant to speak publicly. But then she becomes this powerful advocate for refugee rights.
Yeah.
It must have taken so much courage.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just to imagine her standing at a rally.
Right.
Her voice maybe trembling at first.
Yeah.
And then just getting stronger as she speaks about the struggles and the hopes of her community.
Absolutely. She found her voice.
Yeah.
Not just for herself,
Oh.
but for those who couldn't speak up.
Yeah. It's powerful.
It is.
It's like a reminder that even in the midst of all these challenges and adversity, you can still find the strength to make a difference. So her story is inspiring, and it kind of leads us to another really intriguing aspect of the source material.
Okay.
It's the argument that Tibet's independence could actually benefit China.
Oh, yeah. That's a fascinating one.
That kind of caught me off guard.
It definitely challenges conventional thinking.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Like, how could China, which has asserted sovereignty over Tibet for decades, potentially benefit from its independence?
It's a good question, but the source material presents some really compelling arguments.
Okay, so break it down for me.
Okay, so first, let's think about China's international relations.
Okay.
Right now, the situation in Tibet has strained China's relationships with many countries and organizations.
That makes sense.
Recognizing Tibet's independence could ease those tensions,
Okay.
lead to improved diplomatic ties,
Makes sense.
greater cooperation on the global stage.
Yeah, if China's constantly being criticized for its policies in Tibet, it could hurt their ability to work with other countries
Exactly.
on important issues.
Makes it hard.
Yeah, okay, so what other benefits could there be?
Well, the source material also suggests that granting Tibet independence could lead to de-escalation of internal tensions within China itself.
Okay.
So think about the resources that are currently devoted to maintaining control over Tibet. Military presence, administrative, costs all of that.
It's got to be a lot.
A lot of money, a lot of resources.
Yeah.
And if those resources were redirected towards domestic development projects within China, that could lead to economic benefits for everyone.
Okay, so it's not just about like being altruistic. There's a potential economic upside for China too.
There is.
That's fascinating.
And it goes even further than economics. Recognizing Tibet's independence could strengthen the concept of self-determination for other regions within China.
Okay.
Lead to a more inclusive and modern state.
That makes sense.
Demonstrate a commitment to human rights and democratic principles.
So instead of being seen as this oppressive force, they could be a champion of self-determination and cultural diversity.
𝗧𝗔𝗓𝗓.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
What about the preservation of Tibetan culture, though?
Oh, that's crucial.
Yeah.
The source material argues that if Tibet were independent, they would have the autonomy to protect and promote their unique cultural heritage without interference.
Right.
They could revitalize their language, religion, traditional practices, ensure their survival for generations to come.
It's really interesting, this whole idea that Tibet's independence could benefit China.
It is.
It really makes you realize that sometimes what seems counterintuitive might be the best way forward.
Absolutely.
So this leads us to another fascinating part of our deep dive today.
Okay.
You remember that connection between Tibetan refugees and AI that I mentioned?
I do.
So how does Tibetan culture, which we often think of as very ancient and traditional, how does that connect with this world of cutting-edge technology?
That's what makes it so interesting, right? We're going to explore the world of 𝗪𝗕𝗓𝗓. This organization that's deeply involved in projects related to Tibet, technology, and AI.
Okay.
It's almost like stepping into a science fiction novel.
Yeah.
But with this deeply human and cultural core.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this TATANKA organization.
So from what we can tell from their website, they're involved in a whole range of initiatives.
Okay.
They're combining traditional Tibetan wisdom with cutting-edge technology.
Wow.
In really unexpected ways.
Give me an example.
So, for example, they have these futuristic music initiatives.
Wait, are we talking like Tibetan monks creating electronic dance music?
Well, not quite like that.
Okay.
But it is pushing boundaries.
Okay.
They're exploring the intersection of traditional Tibetan music with AI-generated compositions.
Wow.
Collaborating with musicians from all different backgrounds.
Wow.
To create something totally unique.
Okay.
And it goes even deeper than that.
Deeper?
Deeper, there are mentions of 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗧𝗧. 𝗧𝗧, who is described as an AI humanoid.
An AI humanoid.
And the heart of TATANKA.
Hold on. So, like, a robot infused with Tibetan culture.
It's wild.
What's the point of that?
That's the mystery we're about to unravel.
Okay.
It seems like 𝗧𝗧 plays a key role in their projects. Possibly even embodying aspects of Tibetan culture and wisdom.
So they're creating like a digital embodiment of their heritage?
Yeah.
That can like interact and evolve in the digital world?
Exactly.
That's crazy.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, so they're not just preserving their culture in the physical world, they're extending it into the digital realm.
Exactly.
What are the implications of that?
So many questions.
Yeah.
And what's particularly striking is their vision of using AI as a tool for global harmony.
Okay.
And cultural preservation.
So we hear a lot about like the dangers of AI, right?
You do.
This is like a totally different approach.
Totally different.
Yeah.
They seem to be really concerned about making sure AI is used for good. To promote inclusivity, sustainability, human well-being. And that aligns perfectly with the core values of Tibetan Buddhism.
Right, compassion and nonviolence. And
interconnectedness.
all of that, yeah.
It's like they're weaving those principles into the very fabric of their AI initiatives.
I love that. Okay, I'm ready to go deeper into this.
Yeah, it's fascinating how TATANKA is like embracing the future, but holding on to their past.
Yeah.
You know, they're not just clinging to tradition. They're looking for ways to integrate their heritage into this rapidly changing world.
Yeah, it really challenges like what we think of as a refugee.
Yeah.
They're not just rebuilding their lives, they're shaping the future.
Exactly. And if we look closer at some of TATANKA's projects, it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Remember we talked about their music initiatives? One that stands out is this thing called 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡+.
𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡+.
And it's described as like a musical and cultural journey.
Okay.
And it seems to involve these AI-generated compositions we were talking about.
So it's more than just like monks chanting over electronic beats.
It's not quite that, no.
Okay.
But it seems like it's really about fostering collaboration and cultural exchange.
Okay.
So they're bringing together indigenous artists from all over the world.
Okay.
Each representing their own unique traditions and sounds. And they're using AI to like weave all these different elements into a cohesive musical tapestry.
That's a beautiful image.
It is.
Like they're creating a symphony of cultures, and AI is the conductor.
Exactly. And that brings us back to 𝗧𝗧, the AI humanoid. Because it seems like 𝗧𝗧 might be more than just a digital assistant.
Okay.
Maybe like a central figure in these collaborations.
Yeah.
Possibly even embodying the role of a composer or a performer.
Are you serious? So we could see like an AI humanoid on stage
I know.
With human musicians from all over the world?
I know.
That's crazy.
It raises so many questions about creativity and the evolving relationship between humans and technology.
Like, are we headed towards a future where AI is making art?
Right. I mean, it's mind-boggling to think about.
It is.
But we can't forget about the ethical aspect of AI.
Right, because that was something that TATANKA seemed to be really concerned about.
They were.
So how are they making sure that their projects are lining up with those core Tibetan Buddhist values?
So it's all kind of woven into their approach.
Okay.
You talk about using AI to amplify marginalized voices.
Okay.
To address things like climate change, social justice.
It's about using this technology for good.
Yeah, it's about using this powerful technology to promote understanding, compassion, positive change.
It's like they're trying to give AI a conscience.
Yeah, like a sense of ethics.
Yeah.
It's so different from those dystopian scenarios we always see in movies.
Totally.
And that's what makes TATANKA's work so fascinating.
Yeah.
They're challenging our assumptions about AI, demonstrating its potential for good.
Yeah.
Showing us that it can be a tool for cultural preservation, social progress, even spiritual exploration.
It's inspiring. It makes you realize that even when you're facing these huge challenges,
Right.
innovation and hope can still flourish.
Absolutely. And they're not just victims of circumstance. They're active agents of change.
Shaping their own destiny.
Exactly.
Contributing to a better future.
Yeah. And that leads to some important questions.
Okay.
For all of us to think about.
Okay.
Like, what responsibility do we have to support refugees?
What do we do?
Learn from their experiences.
How can we help?
I think the Tibetan refugee experience, especially as we've seen it through TATANKA, offers valuable insights for everyone.
Okay.
It's a stark reminder, first of all, of the human cost of political conflicts, displacement. We can't ignore the struggles of people who have been forced to flee their homes.
It's easy to get caught up in our own lives and forget about that there are people all over the world who are facing these unimaginable hardships.
It forces us to confront that reality.
Yeah, it does.
And it also highlights the importance of cultural preservation in an increasingly globalized world.
Yeah.
The Tibetan people are fiercely dedicated to keeping their heritage alive, even in exile.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that diversity is something to be cherished, protected, not erased.
And with technology changing everything around us so rapidly, their story makes us think about the future we want to create.
Exactly. How do we want to use technology?
Yeah.
How do we want it to impact our lives?
And the way that Tibetans are engaging with AI, especially through TATANKA, gives us such a unique perspective.
It does.
On this really crucial issue.
Right. It shows that even in the face of all this hardship, there's still room for innovation and hope.
It's inspiring.
It
makes you realize that they're not just victims of circumstance. They're active agents of change.
Exactly.
Shaping their own destiny and making things better.
Yeah, making the future better.
So it's truly inspiring, and it kind of leads us to these really important questions.
Yeah.
Like, what can we do to support refugees and learn from what they've been through?
What is our responsibility?
How can we as individuals and as a global community,
as a world,
make sure that everyone has the opportunity to thrive?
Right.
No matter where they come from.
Their background.
What their circumstances are.
Those are big questions.
They are. And, you know, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Tibetan refugees, I think it's really important to just think about the personal stories that have brought all of this to life.
Yes, because those individual narratives provide that emotional connection to these complex topics.
Yeah, and one story that really stood out to me.
To me too.
Was 𝗵𝗃.
You know?
The weaver who became this incredible advocate for her community.
Such a powerful story.
Yeah, her journey of fleeing her homeland and then finding her voice.
Right.
It just embodies the resilience and the spirit of the Tibetan people.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that even when things are really tough, we can still create positive change.
We can. And her story is kind of like a microcosm of the larger Tibetan narrative. It underscores the power of individual action.
Yeah.
The importance of cultural heritage.
Right.
And the potential for positive change, even when things are difficult.
It reminds us that we can all make a difference.
We can.
No matter what our circumstances are.
Big or small.
We can support organizations working with refugees. We can educate ourselves about their experiences, advocate for policies that promote human rights and dignity.
All those things.
And we can challenge ourselves to think about like the ethical implications of all this new technology.
Yeah, like AI.
How can we make sure that it empowers people instead of exploiting them?
Right.
How can we make sure that it promotes cultural diversity and global understanding instead of homogenization and division?
Such important questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we've seen through the lens of Tibetan refugees and culture and AI, the answers might surprise us.
They might?
Maybe in their journey of resilience and adaptation, Tibetan refugees are not only preserving their own heritage, but helping to shape a more inclusive and compassionate future for all of us.
Beautiful thought.
So we've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, we have.
There's so much more to discover about Tibetan culture and history and the global refugee experience.
Absolutely. Keep learning.
I encourage you to keep exploring,
Yeah.
to seek out the stories of those who have been displaced. Think about the role that you can play in creating a more just and welcoming world.
Because ultimately, Their stories are our stories.
Yeah.
Their struggles, their triumphs, their hopes for the future are all connected.
Yeah.
And by understanding their experiences, we understand ourselves better.
Yeah.
And our shared humanity.
I love that. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope we've sparked your curiosity and inspired you to learn more.
I hope so.
It's amazing how all these different threads come together.
Yeah.
You know, the personal stories and the cultural preservation and the technology.
Yeah.
It all creates this incredible picture of what it means to be a Tibetan refugee.
It really does speak to their adaptability, their resilience.
Yeah. And what I find so inspiring is that even as they're embracing these new technologies, like AI, they're not letting go of their values.
Exactly.
It's all about compassion and ethics and human dignity.
It's a really powerful example for the rest of us.
Yeah, especially as we're all trying to figure out how to live in this technology-driven world.
A world that's changing so quickly.
How do we make sure that all this technology serves humanity?
Right. How do we stay in control?
That's the big question.
That is the question.
And what I really appreciate about the Tibetan approach, especially as we're seeing it through TATANKA, is that they're all about collaboration, interconnectedness.
Bringing people together.
It's not just about using AI to preserve their own culture.
Right.
They want to connect with other indigenous communities.
Share ideas.
Have these conversations and create something new.
Yeah, build something together.
It's like they're imagining a future where technology brings us together.
Yeah.
Instead of dividing us.
Celebrating differences.
Yeah.
Recognizing our shared humanity.
It's a beautiful vision.
It is.
And one that I think we could all learn from.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
I'm filled with this sense of hope.
Me too.
And just a real appreciation for the power of the human spirit.
It's amazing what people can overcome.
Yeah, and the Tibetan refugee story shows us that even when things are incredibly difficult, there's always a place for innovation, compassion,
always,
and a belief in a better future.
Hope never dies.
This is a story that's going to stay with me.
It will.
And I really hope it inspires our listeners to keep exploring, keep learning, and engaging with the world around them.
With open hearts and minds.
Yeah, with curiosity and empathy.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.